What's up, my wizards? Dev from SBMTG. More Oath of the Gatewatch spoilers for you today. 10 of them came down from the mothership this morning. Actually 9 this morning, and then 1 in the very, very wee hours of the morning. So let's go ahead and talk about these, because there are some very interesting cards in this bunch. First thing I want to talk about is the first card that was spoiled chronologically here. This is Gall the Gatewatch. This was Wedge's spoiler over at the Mana Source, and probably the best one he's ever gotten, as far as I can tell. I do think this will see some standard play, but probably only in a very specific deck. I'm thinking like Esper Planeswalkers maybe, or maybe some sort of combination of green-white and some other color Planeswalkers. But remember, you can't nab like Baby Jace or, you know, Nissa, Baby Nissa, I guess. With this, they start out as creatures, you can't go grab them. That's important. But we do still have, you know, obviously Gideon in the format, Sarkhan and Broken's in the format. I don't know why I went straight to him. Kiora, the new Nissa that's coming out, Chandra, there's quite a few Planeswalkers in the format we can have. This Obnixilis. So it's probably a decent card for some sort of standard Super Friends deck. But does it go into like modern Super Friends? Maybe. A tutor for a Planeswalker is probably good, but this just conjures up visions of like Sarkhan's Triumph. And I know some people like Sarkhan's Triumph. This didn't really see much standard play. In a format full of viable, important targets for it, it really didn't see much play. So I'm a little worried that this isn't going to see the play that it looks like it's going to see, but we'll have to wait, because I do think this will at least be a 1 or 2 of in certain decks. But again, we'll see. This is Linvala the Preserver. A little bit of buzz about her today. Will she be standard playable? 6 mana is an awful lot. You know, you do get a 5/5 flyer, not a bad body. Could be worse. Could be worse. But this really just looks geared to, for Commander more than any other format to me. I don't know about Standard, but this definitely looks like a good Commander card, right? Now, it does have 2 really, really good and exploitable into the battlefield triggers. Gaining 5 life is no joke. 8 power, all of which flies for 6 mana. Probably a good deal. I like that it makes you the creature, you know, that's really awesome. So just the enter the battlefield triggers are very exploitable, and I'm a huge fan of creatures with ETB triggers. You know, I do love those. So I do think it's exploitable. We'll have to see. You know, we don't have much in the format right now, like that blinks, you know, very well. So again, we'll have to wait and see. But even if you're just like looping this with Den Protector or something like that, that seems good. But they have to have more life than you. They have to have more creatures, which shouldn't be that hard. Seems like decent in mid-range decks and even control decks. Some people are saying control finisher. I don't think it's that really. You know, this ultimately looks like a decent commander card and something that may end up as a bulk standard rare for the time being. We'll have to see. I just don't think it'll make too much of a splash, but those abilities are really balmy if you can get them to work. And if they don't work, you still have a 5/5 flyer. It's good. But fantastic limited card, right? We got a 5-piece cycle of 3 mana cost creatures today that are all in different guilds, you know, the allied colored guilds. And some of them are pretty interesting, but let me start with sort of the more limited sealed and draft fodder first. This right here is Relentless Hunter. Relentless Hunter, pretty interesting. You know, they've made these all look at least playable, and I think they are all playable on the budget level. Definitely. I'm going to be making a lot of budget decks with like all 5 of these creatures. So I can see this guy going in like just a, you know, very cheap green-red aggro deck. He may be an effective guy. Not a terrible 3-drop, but really geared for limited play, you can tell, as a lot of these are. This is Joraga Auxiliary. I actually think this is cool because it has 3 very, very relevant creature types. I'm not sure how relevant that'll be in Standard. You know, Standard Elves probably doesn't want this. It doesn't necessarily want to play white, unless it's Rallying the Ancestors. But even then, I don't think it makes room for this card. And then Allies, maybe. Do like a Renowned Allies thing. That sounds pretty casual. It's more budget, really, than anything. That could be an interesting budget deck. Just like green-white aggro with the cheapest cards that are actually pretty good. And this is interesting. You know, a mana sink is always good, but that's sort of the dead giveaway that it's for limited play. That kind of mana sink on a card. But you can get it to work. It's pretty good. And if you're playing it in a budget standard deck and you own a couple of copies of Hangerback Walker or something, that seems all right. But it takes a long time to get there. But in the meantime, it's actually a fairly respectable body, again, at least in limited. So I like these, but mostly for limited play. This one is on the line. This is Mindmelter, and I think this goes better in the budget decks that I've been describing than the last 2 cards. You know, this is obviously, you can put this to work in like budget blue-black Eldrazi, which is already a fun deck it's already a decent deck, you know. And this slots in pretty well. I like the fact that it can't be blocked. That's super duper awesome. And then you can just like make them exile cards from their hand. That fuels processing, which may be a thing, but mostly just the ability, like it's on a stick, you get to exile stuff out of their hand. That's insane if this thing resolves, and you can do it on curve. You know, you play this, and the next turn you start exiling cards from their hand if you want to. So it's pretty utility. You know, it's not bad. It can swing and still do its ability. I like that too. And when it swings, it's going to go unblocked. That's cool. So a lot of good things about this guy. These next two are the ones that I think are sort of a cut above the rest, but I'll save the best for last. This next one is Flayer Drone. I made a deck about a month ago. It was like red-black Eldrazi pingers for $10. This guy goes directly into that. 3 power for 3 mana, and first strike is key here. It sucks he only has the 1 toughness, you know, vulnerable to all kinds of spot reveal, even stuff that does just the 1 damage. But in combat, 3 power at first strike is beast. That is actually pretty good. And this goes in sort of an impact trimmers-y thing. I could see like a budget Jund, this is so dumb, but like a budget Jund Eldrazi deck that plays all the green Eldrazi that give you tokens, either when they die or when they come into play, you know, and this seems like it has cool synergy with those, you know. But that's probably more of a limited interaction than a standard interaction. But either way, it might be fun, you know. I just like a lot about Flayer Drone. I think that he just stacks on to all these other cards, Impact Trimmers and Nettle Drone, and a couple of the other ones, Molten Nursery that we see, and could actually be really, really fun. Alright, this last one is, I think, definitely the best of this, you know, cycle of 3-mana creatures. This is Reflector Mage, and he's awesome. Sort of reminds everybody of Mana War, you know, but this is like the ultimate Mana War. Sure, you have to pay, you know, 2 colors of mana instead of just the 1, but it's still the same casting cost. He gets an extra point of toughness, still bounces the creature, and they can't play it again until your next turn. That's crazy. Like, the usual rules don't apply with bounce, you know. I bounce your guy, next turn they play it again. Which still hurts their tempo. But this hurts their tempo in like a much nastier way. They can't play the guy for like a whole like turn cycle and a half. That's really, really, really awesome. I think that this guy, more than the other cards, is great in these like budget decks. And the budget blue-white tempo deck is totally available thanks to this guy. Like Harbinger Tide, Stratus Dancer, and a couple of other cards, you know. I could definitely see. I've already done mono blue tempo, and I love that deck. Just add white, throw in Reflector Mage, and you've got yourself a fantastic 3-drop, you know. I was using Halimar Tidecaller. This looks a lot better, an incredible tempo play, even at standard, I think. And I'm not going to say it's going to see all the standard play, but in the decks that I make for the channel, the budget decks, I think this is going to see quite a lot of play, and will do some work in testing. I really can't wait to test this guy. This right here is Dominant Will Eldrazi, which is probably going to be changed due to translation. I could probably see that. But Dominant Will Eldrazi, which I hope it doesn't get changed, that sounds so awesome, is actually pretty cool. It seems slightly pushed, you know. I love that they gave it haste. That seems like they're pushing it a little bit. And I do think this might see some, but not very expansive standard play. But I might eat my words there, because the effect is really desirable. Not only does the guy you still have haste, this has haste. I mean, you're just dealing a ton of damage all out of nowhere on turn 5, which I think is really good. You're stealing a blocker, their biggest guy, and swinging in with everybody. This could be an interesting, like, play for red aggro decks. So there's a lot going for this card. We'll just have to see. I'm interested to test with it. This is Vile Redeemer right here. I actually think this is a much better card than it just looks like at first glance, you know. 3 mana, 3/3, 3 power, 3 toughness. That's awesome. With Flash. I love Flash creatures, and I'm super glad that we got one in this form. Not only does it have Flash, very, very important ability right here. You can pay an extra just colorless, straight up colorless mana when you play it, and it saves you from mass removal in some ways, you know. All your guys that died this turn will become 1/1 Scion tokens, you know. I think that's really, really cool right there. Just a lot of interesting applications, and again, in budget decks, I think this might be a thing. I'm not really sure how, well, he might actually be insane in standard, but only as sort of a sideboard card, you know. This is Remorseless Punishment. I'm actually pretty excited about this card. It could be total, absolute junk, or it could be amazing. Of all the cards I've talked about being excited to test with today, this I am the most excited with. For some reason, it reminds me of, like, a child's version of Cruel Ultimatum, you know, which is one of my favorite cards, like, ever, bar none. I love Cruel Ultimatum. Love Toast. So, but Remorseless Punishment just seems like a card in a similar vein to me, and it makes them, you know, it forces them to make decisions. The card looks so intriguing to me, and I really can't wait to see what it does. I'm not going to say, you know, we'll play a 4 of and everything, but I definitely think this is one of the more innovative cards that I've seen in a really, really long time, and I love that it gives them the chance to screw up. You know, that's cool, and in certain metas that can be awesome. I'm not saying, you know, metas with bad players, but this will probably be better at the local level than it will at the tournament level, is all I'm saying. And people are saying on like comment sections and such that if you don't get the full 10 life off of this, it's just completely worthless and not good to play. I don't believe that at all, honestly. Even if you just get like 2 creatures or 1 discard and a creature off of it, that's awesome. And obviously I don't have to tell you, if they don't have cards to discard or creatures to sack, then they have to take the 10. That seems pretty good, but I'm not only after just the 10 life here. Every option on the card is good when it happens. Remember earlier when I said that only 10 cards were spoiled today? Well, that was the case, but in the middle of editing here, they've released a card at midnight on the 31st. But I'm not really sure how great it is. This right here is Prophet of Distortion, which I always want to say Prophet of Creepings, but Prophet of Distortion, interesting stats, is probably a decent limited card. I don't really like 1-drops and sealed, but this looks good, really, really good mana sink as you go later on in the game, and probably a fine top deck even later on too. So not, you know, it's not like it's the best card ever. I don't know if it's going to see like any standard play, but in like the Eldrazi deck, like blue-black Eldrazi, I probably like it more than Sludge Crawler. At the end of the day, I'm just not seeing much standard playability, although it is a 1-drop that is relevant when you top deck it later on. That's kind of cool. Well, that's all the spoilers for today, a whole 10 of them. There will probably be more tomorrow, so keep checking up. Happy New Year to all my wizards out there, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.